Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the January 3rd, 2024 Worcester Township Board of Supervisors reorganization meeting. Would you please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? So I will dispense with the introductions. I think our expansive audience knows everybody who's here. For those, I think you've all attended reorganization meetings in the past. This is largely a procedural night where we follow the rules of the second-class township code, where we're making we start with temporary appointments and then permanent appointments and then volunteer appointments and set the schedule for the year and a variety of other things. We'll have discussion and debate on various items. Some will be fairly quick, some might take longer than that, and then we'll do our best to work through in a reasonable and workmanlike fashion. First and foremost, does anybody have any informational items for the board tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this meeting is being recorded for future video broadcast.
Thank you, Sean. First item up on our agenda is public comment. Does anybody wish to make any public comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll move forward to start with the agenda and our official action items. First item is that we need to appoint a temporary chair. Does anybody wish to make a motion to appoint a temporary chair?
I'll make the motion to appoint Mr. DeLello as temporary chair.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye. Motion passes. Next up, we need to appoint a temporary secretary. Does anybody wish to make a motion to appoint a temporary secretary?
Yes, I'll make a motion that Steve Quigley is temporary secretary.
Okay, I'll second that. It's been moved and seconded. Is there anybody who wishes? It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Next up, we need to appoint a chair to the Board of Supervisors for 2024. Does anybody wish to make a motion?
I'll make the motion, Mr. DeLello, please.
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, we need to appoint a vice chair to the Board of Supervisors. Does anybody wish to make a motion to appoint a vice chair at this time?
I'll make a motion for Mr. Betts.
I will second that motion. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up, we have official appointments. I think everybody has in their document, starts with A and runs through double B, and these are a series of appointments. One item I will draw our attention to is that we actually have, you'll note that Steve Quigley is appointed to a couple of different roles there. We presently do not have an assistant manager. We're in the process of hiring one. Our last one left about a month ago, and as a result, there were some vacant slots, and Mr. Quigley has been kind enough to volunteer for those procedurally and so that we have them filled, but invariably those would be placeholders, and we would look to, when we have an assistant township manager in place, that individual, we would look to reassign those tasks when that is appropriate.
Mr. DeLello, question. With some of these positions we're filling internally from the Board of Supervisors, can a Board of Supervisor sit as the assistant township manager helping with the workload? Not suggesting any of us would volunteer for that position, but is that kosher?
So by code, Steve, it very specifically articulates the township manager and a supervisor cannot be one and the same, and I think it sort of carries through to the assistant township manager as well, but I would sort of defer to Wendy's expertise on that.
Thank you.
So we like to do these as a single motion just to make it a little bit easier as opposed to running through every single one of these. Does anybody wish to make a motion to sort of appoint the slate as presented?
I'll make a motion that we approve as A through BB as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. So next up, we have volunteer appointments. We'll start with the vacancy chair, and just, this is one that sometimes gets some attention, at least over the last couple of years, and I think part of that is, I know for me, it was a lack of understanding to what the role actually did and didn't. I think we had Gordon Todd for a generation that was in the role, and then it's maneuvered a couple of times. Presently, we have Jim Mollick serving in the role. He has been in the role, I think, for a couple of years. He has expressed his willingness to continue in that role. And just as a reminder, what happens if there is a scenario where one of the supervisors needs to be replaced for whatever reason, they resign, and there was an issue, obviously, about 20 years ago where a supervisor passed away, whatever scenario, the way the law currently works is the two remaining supervisors have 30 days with which to appoint a successor for that particular position. If for any reason those two supervisors cannot agree on a candidate, then the vacancy chair would have a vote to determine or help determine whether they could come to an agreement. If not, it would then go to the court. So it's in the history of Worcester, it's never been utilized, but that's sort of where its role. That individual does not become a supervisor in the role. That was kind of one of my thoughts, is that's what the vacancy chair did, but that's not the case. And largely, it's just it's a slot we need to fill. Jim has asked to sort of continue in that role. Does anybody wish to make a motion either to reappoint Jim or to present another candidate?
I'll make a motion that we appoint Jim Mollick for the vacancy chair.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion on the floor? Kim?
I think it's a position that you might consider alternating people and trying somebody new at it and get them involved in politics. I suggest Bert Hines would be a possible candidate for that position, and we'd like you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any any additional public comment? Seeing none, does anybody wish to comment on that, or would take it to a vote?
Just one comment, that make it public that anybody should make application to that, or any vacancy board, or any volunteer appointments. If you do that prior, at least 30 days, and your name should be on the list, and then you'd have more than one choice. But that should be maybe sent out ahead of time.
Okay.
Other than that.
Okay. So there is a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded. We've had public comments. We do need to take a vote on that. I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Kim, I do appreciate the input, and certainly that's something we'll consider moving forward to sort of have more choice in that regard. I don't know if he stepped forward or he stepped backward. We're not sure either way. We're comfortable he's here every month. He keeps our audience numbers up. So next up, we have the Zoning Hearing Board, and we actually have two positions that are presently up for reappointment. We have Michael Labor, who presently serves on the board. He has expressed a willingness and an interest to continue serving. And then we also have an alternate member who is Brad Smith, and Brad also has expressed his willingness to continue to serve. We can handle these as two separate motions because or can we do them as one? I guess it would.
You can do
Wendy,
this one.
we can do it as one? Well, let me start by saying, how does anybody feel about the two candidates we currently have, or any thoughts? I certainly have thoughts that I can add, or I can defer to either one of you, and we can discuss it.
Mr. Chairman, I think due to the ongoing zoning issues, I think it's important to keep people with experience on the matter before the township for a number of years, rather than trying to bring some new people in to try to explain the whole flow. They've been acquainted with the ongoing legal situation within the township, and I think it's be appropriate to retain those volunteers at this point.
Thank you, Steve. You read my mind. That was certainly my thought process as well. They've been sort of there since the beginning of some important matters, and certainly those are still active pieces in front of the board, and I think that's certainly helpful. Lou, do you have any thoughts or comments before we ask for a motion?
I'll just state that I think the zoning hearing board, Mr. Labor, Brad Smith, act very professional at their meeting, and I believe that they're very, very competent. So I'll make the motion that we approve the zoning board as presented.
And that would be Michael Labor being reappointed and Brad Smith being reappointed.
Yes.
He made the motion, I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, we have the Planning Commission. We have, again, two individuals whose term is up. We have Tony Shear, who has served multiple terms, and we have Bob Andorn, who has served one term. Both individuals have expressed positive interest in serving another term, which is always helpful. And I do not believe, Sean, we received any applicants for other Planning Commission members at this time. So those would be the two individuals who are up for reappointment, if we'd like to do that, or if anybody else would like to present another candidate before the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to reappoint the two parties.
I'll second that.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to reappoint Tony Shear and Bob Andorn to the Planning Commission. Is there any public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, we move to the holiday and meeting schedule. And ultimately, this is make sure I got the right sheet here. It's a motion to approve our holiday schedule and the meeting schedule. Sean, I believe the packet that the residents have sort of lays out what the schedule is. I know if you could, the copy I have doesn't have.
President's Day, February 19th, Day, May 27th,
No.
Independence Day, which is obviously July 4th, Labor Day is September 2nd, Thanksgiving Day is November 28th, the following day, Black Friday, November 29th, is also a holiday, followed by Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day, which are recurring.
Right, but I think the packet also listed when would be the dates and the times of our meetings and those, and I know I saw that when I was on the website, but I didn't print that sheet out. That's,
Supervisors, excuse me, I'll just get started at the top. The Board of Auditors in 2022 will meet on the first Monday as required by the second class master code, that is January 6th. The Board of Supervisors will meet on January 17th, February 21st, March 20th, April 17th. Excuse me, I have not been audible. The Board of Supervisors will meet on January 17th, February 21st, March 20th, April 17, May 15, June 19, July 17, August 21st, September 18th, October 16th, November 20th, and December 18th. Those meeting times will begin at 7 p.m., work sessions to begin at 6:30 p.m.
yeah, I got you. Thank you, Sean.
Page 2. All those dates.
Gotcha. Okay. That's what I was looking for. I'm sorry. My bad. Okay. So I'm certainly fine with the meeting schedule for us. I think moving the meeting from 7:30 to 7 has been a good addition that we did last year. I think that worked out just fine. I didn't see any issues with starting a little earlier and and hopefully wrapping up a little earlier. The only thing I've mentioned previously is just if we happen to have a work session that we think might run more than a short period of time, that we just adjust it on the fly as we need to for any meeting that might require a little bit more time slot. So if somebody would like to make a motion on that?
Just, sorry, point of order, Mr. Chairman. Is it 7 PM then will be the continued meeting times for business meetings?
Correct. I have no desire to change that. It seems to be working out fine.
Okay, thank you.
Motion?
I do.
Make a motion that we approve the holiday schedule and the meeting schedules as is presented.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. So next up, we have other establishments. This is going to be a motion to set township depositories, treasurer and assistant treasurer bond amounts, vehicle reimbursement rate, and the newspaper of record. Sean, could you just give us a little more context on that before we take a motion?
Yes, absolutely. Depositories, as in the banks that we and financial institutions with whom the township does business, have not changed. The bond amounts have also not changed, with the exception that we have a vacancy with our assistant township manager, so there is currently no bonded person in that role. The vehicle reimbursement rate, I have not checked what IRS's is. I think it may have changed by about 1.5 cents, I think, was rumored. The newspaper of record remains the Times Herald in Norristown as well.
Sounds good, John. And invariably, we just follow the IRS, number in terms of the vehicle reimbursement. That's not something we're setting independently on our side. So I'll take a motion if somebody would like to make one.
So I'll make a motion that we approve A through I as presented for the township depositories through Group 3 Park and Rec facilities.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up is going to be a resolution to establish certain activities conducted by the Worcester Township Volunteer Fire Department. As I think everyone will recall and be aware, several years ago, we sort of started to combine. There was a series of events that the fire department was running every year, and it just became easier to sort of do in a singular motion so that it wasn't necessary for them to come and ask for permission and approval for these sort of pre-existing events they have every year. So I believe you have in your packet sort of what those dates and events are, but it sort of amounts to any fire department picnic, the chicken barbecue. They used to have a 5K. We still keep that on there in case there has been some talk they might bring it back. A couple of the lady auxiliary events, such as the craft show, the seasonal Santa visits and tours, and then some provisional traffic items where the fire department helps the county, and then obviously when they come out and about and do anything sort of holiday related with Santa and Halloween and those sorts of events. If somebody would like to make a motion, I will entertain that.
You gonna take these one at a time?
No, just what we would wind up doing is the resolution, which is Resolution 2024-01.
Right, we're gonna do each individual.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
make a
yeah,
motion
yeah.
to approve Resolution 2024-01 for the activities of the Worcester Township Volunteer Fire Department.
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Next up, we have Resolution 2024-02, which is a resolution to establish a fee schedule. The fee schedule is not new. We've had one for some time, but just I would ask Sean to maybe take a minute to sort of clarify sort of how we establish the fee schedule and manage that year to year and what adjustments we make when appropriate.
Yes, so I'll begin by saying there's no adjustment to the fee schedule this year. We are changing the way we calculate a fee schedule, and we'll be working with our building contractor firm, Keystone, this upcoming year to review our fee schedule. I believe it was last reviewed 2 years ago, and the formula used by the manager at that time, I'll just be honest, I don't totally understand it, but the goal was to keep everything, all fees, below or at the cost of the township, so as to comply with state regulations.
Right, I think the key element there is ultimately, it's not a profit center for the township, it's really just cost recoupment where appropriate and sort of following state guidelines in that regard. So if somebody would like to make a motion, I will entertain that.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-02, fee schedule.
And I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Next up, we have Resolution 2024-03, and that's going to be a resolution to appoint the township auditor.
Yes, so once again, we are suggesting B. Bergvall and Company. I did speak with our auditor this year just to assure that the team, the personnel that are conducting the audits are changing routinely from year to year. She assured us that, yes, that is indeed happening, and we've been very, very pleased with their work. They continue to enjoy a very good professional reputation in the municipal management scene, so we once again are suggesting the appointment of B. Bergvall.
Thank you, Sean, and I'm glad you sort of commented on the notion that the sort of rotating auditors and just as a good and a best practice, it's always an area that they're ultimately not doing a forensic accounting in terms of the audit. You know, sometimes that question gets asked, but largely they're coming in and making sure that they're checking all the things that we're doing every year and producing an audit report to the board. And each year we've, knock wood, they have done well by their recommendations. And they, as you said, they've maintained a very strong and capable reputation in the community. And I will entertain a motion if somebody would like to make one.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-03, appoint the township auditor.
And I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up, we have 2024-04, and that's going to be a resolution to authorize the destruction of certain public records in accordance with Act 428 of 1968 and the Municipal Records Manual. Sean, I'm going to ask you to comment on this, and in particular, I guess I want to make sure that we're clarifying. We've been asked in the past, there's always concern when you talk about destroying public records. If you could maybe just give a little context of Act 428 and really what we're doing and not doing in terms of record destruction.
Absolutely. So I'll begin by saying the township complies with the Municipal Records Manual, which essentially provides dates for each category of record to say how long those must be retained. Any records beyond those windows in their respective categories are destroyed at the end of the year in accordance with this act, and that ensures that the township knows what records it has so that when members of the public may request those records, we can efficiently supply them. So this is just a matter of good housekeeping and complying with the state's recommendations.
Thank you, Sean. Does anybody wish to make a motion on this matter?
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-04, destruction of certain public records.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up is a resolution to establish emergency service response areas. I don't believe this has changed since last year, but Sean, if you could confirm that and give us just a little more context.
Correct. There are no changes. For context, Worcester is odd in that we have multiple ambulance companies covering the township, and the township is zoned differently depending on whether it is Monday through, I believe, Saturday during like what would be considered standard business hours, or if it is on Sunday or evening. There are two maps that would let residents know that they are attached to this and are available on the township website as well if individuals care to know which zones they are in at which times.
Sean, I think one of the bigger issues, we see emails or talk to people, is the fundraising or the donation card comes out to the people, and they donate to one or the other, and they get the coverage from another company, which they didn't donate to, and they get the bill of that. Is there any way we can solve that problem? Do we inform the people that where they're at, they're covered by X company or Y company?
It's very difficult because at times the company that might provide you service in your zone of the township might be occupied, and county dispatch may send another company. So because of the emergency nature of what they do, there's no guarantee who will show up or when. The question I get asked the most, and it tends to come from our residents who are seniors, is how can I subscribe to one company and receive reciprocity from the others? That's something I've reached out to the county to see if we can get some of these providers in a room together to come up with some sort of mutual service agreement. But ultimately, as independent nonprofit organizations, they will have to enter into those agreements on their own. But the county is aware that this is something that Worcester residents are concerned about and want to come up with a equitable way to assure that they can get these subscription services offered to them.
So what I'm hearing is most townships have one carrier.
That's correct. If you went to Plymouth Township, Plymouth EMS is going to cover you 24/7, and your subscription service with them would virtually guarantee that if you were picked up at any time during the year, it's going to be a Plymouth ambulance taking you to the hospital, and that flat fee will cover your rate. That's not the case here.
Yeah, it's a big issue. Once again, if you use the ambulance coverage, it costs you $1,500 or $1,800 to get picked up, and you think you've donated your fee to that certain company, you're expecting a return on your investment.
Yes, and I would also call attention to the fact that they solicit donations and advertise their service. So residents should be very careful to read the letter and make sure it's not a charitable donation that they're submitting, that they are, if intending to, getting this subscription service.
Well, I guess maybe that's something we should look at in one of our newsletters, covering that a little more extensively, to inform the people what the story is. Thank you.
That's a good point. So, Sean, if we chose to or desired to have a singular coverage point for the township, do we even have the capability that we could do that, or are we?
It would require the township to fund one of the existing EMS providers to have a full-time substation here, or to create our own ambulance service.
Okay.
Well, they do have a substation correctly now at Meadowood, or is that funded by Meadowood?
That is, I'm not sure what their funding is. That is Skipback EMS's substation, and they have that open, I believe, Monday through Saturday morning until evening only. But I'm not sure to what degree Meadowood contributes to that, or if their location to Meadowood gives them some sort of financial advantage, but I can look into that.
Maybe they lured them in with the property there. It was Meadowood's house there, and maybe they let them set the substation up there. It really benefits Meadowood and the residents, and I'm sure that's sort of a selling point when you have an ambulance on site for their.
Yeah, and I'm not certain if they have some sort of lease agreement or what, but I do believe that property that they occupy is owned by Meadowood, so I'll look into that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Does Lou, do you have any questions, or do you wish to make a motion?
So we're up to
Resolution 2024-05.
make approval of Resolution 2024-05, establish emergency service response areas.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up, we have other business. Does anybody wish to bring other business before the board this evening?
Just a note that I brought up to your attention that the Board of Supervisor meeting is published here as Wednesday, January 18 at 7:30. It should be Wednesday, January 17 at 7 o'clock. Needs to be corrected.
Got it. We'll make sure that's correct in all the appropriate areas. So I had one other item under other business, Lou, and it's directed at you, but sort of indirectly directed at you. We had talked about the school board, and they have actually, we have 2 liaisons, not 1. So we have Jen Cancro, and I'm going to draw a blank on the other one, Purdue. Samira Purdue are the liaisons on the school board that are supposed to be the township liaisons. I wanted to know if you wanted us to extend an invite to them to our next business meeting, or an opportunity for them to come and say hello to us or not, if you had any thoughts.
Jen Cancro and who else?
Samira.
Samira.
One is top left.
She's the board vice president. Gotcha.
Correct. So they serve on various committees as school board directors, and those are the 2 individuals that have actually are listed as the liaisons. At least that's what Dr. Zerbe tells Sean, who passed it along to me. And
We're going to grant them a invitation to a board meeting to discuss.
nothing in particular, introductions so that they can know who we are and who they are, and perhaps we can share some thoughts if we want to or not.
I think that would be a great idea.
Okay.
At one point, I think Herb used to come. Herb Roth was our liaison, and even before Herb, they would attend the meetings to let us know what's happening, but I don't think since Herb left 6 years ago, we've ever had anybody from the school board come to a meeting.
I think we had 1 meeting, and he turned tail and left. He's no longer on the board. But yeah, you're correct. I mean, we've certainly seen a number of issues come up in our meeting that are school-specific. We spent a fair amount of time last year on the parking issue as just one item, but there are others. I think it's a new year, it's a new cycle. Perhaps we'll give them an opportunity to start new and fresh and say we'd love to work more.
Offer that to be a formal request that they attend our business meeting.
John, could you take care of extending an invite through Dr. Zerbe that we'd love to have them come and visit?
Absolutely. Just one clarifying question. Would you want there to be like something on the agenda to discuss with them, or is it just kind of informal?
I think it's informal, but if they say that they're coming, we certainly could add an agenda item and we could spend a few minutes talking about that. But I also don't want to, we're not trying to set them up, inappropriately. I mean, we want them to come and visit, and if they are inclined to do that, we'd certainly love to carve out a few minutes to chat with them.
I'll take care of it.
Does that sound reasonable?
I think that's a great idea.
All right. So I don't have any other business. Either one of you have anything?
Mr. Chairman, going back to something we voted on, I'm looking at, as a review this, the getting rid of the records.
Okay.
If I'm reading it right, it says we dispose of the records of their meetings we have as of October of this year, 2023.
Page you on.
Rebecca, I saw that.
So this would be Lou's tab E, and it would be page, let's see where we're at. It's either 1 or 2.
Are you talking about AL24, Mr. Quigley?
Right.
So that's just the video recordings. It's not all records.
So if, as of October, we're getting rid of any meetings from October?
Any digital stored on our hard drive, I would leave up anything that's on the website. I mean, unless
but
you
as far
want
as
to
the-
take them down.
I wish we had meetings back when I first started. We had recordings of meetings. Some people probably wouldn't be maybe living in the community for some of the lies that happen here in this office. And I think I personally, looking at it, would probably like to keep the recordings of the meetings just if we have to go back on something, some issues. I don't think it takes up much. We're not talking files and files within the room, but as I said, I sat here for close to 3 years trying to determine how the township records got falsified. And, you know, I was lied to for close to 3 years.
Right.
And I only wish some days we would have had recordings of the meetings at that time to see who actually said what. So I'm not really in favor of getting rid of the recordings, the meetings that,
The ones that we have, which
one that we have. I think history
Sure.
is an important lesson we can all learn from.
Should we keep a separate file just for all the flash drives for digital?
It doesn't take much room. I mean,
No, and it can be individual flash drives.
if something comes up, we can refer back to it
I agree, I think a great idea.
rather than the other things can be redone, but what someone
Right.
says, I like accountability, I guess. So if we would say that the
Okay.
videos of the meetings not be destroyed. I mean, we're going back 4 months, 5 months back, and they're all going to disappear.
Is there a rolling on the field like 2 years, or there's a number of things that have statute going?
I'm not sure, but I mean, I don't think it's a difficult thing for us to maintain those. I
Yes.
would say that we'd certainly want to.
So, yeah, these are basically suggestions from the state. I mean, we're free to hold on to records longer than we want to.
Yeah,
The only thing I might suggest is I'd like to reach out to our IT vendor, because these are extremely large files, and just see what the best manner for keeping them is, whether it's cloud-based or separate hard drive or something like that.
right, if you can look into that, Sean, I'd just like to keep a record of what the history is. It's so important.
Then we will, we'll remove that from our destruction schedule.
Yeah, especially with the ongoing, not picking one individual project going on in the township, but it's been going on for a number of years, and that still hasn't been rectified. I'd just like to go back and, if we have to go back and look at history as to where and how we ended up there.
Fine with me. I think I think we can all agree on that, John. So do we need to do anything more official? Okay.
So if we could, maybe what's best, Wendy, is just to identify it by its line item in the supporting document. So I believe that was AL 24.
Right.
So if we could just make a motion to remove AL 24 from the destruction manual, or from Resolution 24-04.
Okay.
Would that be sufficient, Wendy? Okay.
Okay. So I'm happy to make a motion that we exclude item AL 24 from from Resolution 2024-04 to memorialize the board's intention to not remove or destroy any recordings of public meetings to date.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Sean. Good idea, Steve. I appreciate that. Does anybody have any additional other business for the board? Kim?
So I just want to thank you for the open space acquisitions you made in 2023. Very happy you're pursuing that so strongly, and look forward to more in 2024.
Thank you, Kim. We appreciate that. Does anybody else have any other business to bring before the board tonight? Seeing none, then motion to adjourn. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it.